Our next speaker is Mel Barrett. He's the Chief Executive from Nottingham City Council. He's got a background in land management and MBA and has been Chief Executive before Nottingham at Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council, and then involved in senior level with regeneration in Hammersmith and Fulham and Oxford. And so, Mel, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. I started at Nottingham in September 2020 in the midst of COVID. I spent most of my time supporting the Director of Public Health in terms of managing through that. Sarah and I did a bit of business in Nottingham, but it was all on Teams and Zoom. So it's been great to see people in 3D, and it's great to come out to meet people in terms of actually meeting people for real. I'm going to talk a bit about Nottingham. You probably think of Nottingham, images of Robin Hood and so on, and the world famous rally chopper, if you're my generation. And all of these are indeed part of Nottingham's incredible heritage. Today, Greater Nottingham is a population of about 700,000, indicated by the green line on the map. And that's our broader conurbation. It's a very successful area, and it has an economic performance above average in terms of the East Midlands. However, that's not the City of Nottingham's administrative boundary for which I'm responsible. That's shown indicated in red, with a population of about 330,000. About 50% of the people who work in the area in red, where the majority of businesses are based, go home outside that red area and spend their taxes there. So just to give an example in terms of some of the issues that we're dealing with, 80% of the housing stock in that area shown in red is council tax bands A or B, the lowest council tax bands, which gives you an indication of the level of deprivation. So we say that in terms of the socio-economic performance, the Greater Nottingham area, indicated in green, performs something like Bristol. The area indicated in red performs something like Manchester, just to give you an idea of the differences that we're facing. And therefore it shows that there is a real difference and importance in terms of where lines are drawn on the map. Enough of the geography. Let me tell you about our people. We're a young and diverse city. Chris Carter, my colleague who's head of transport strategy, is the brains of the operation, and basically said to me as we're prepping for this, we've either got young people or old people. Let me explain that a little bit more. So we've got two major universities, 80,000 students. About 31% of our population is aged under 29. As well as being young, we are also diverse. The 2011 census shows that 35% of the population is from a black, Asian or minority ethnic background, and we're pretty confident that when the results of this last year's census are in, it'll be over 40% that are black, Asian or minority ethnic. In terms of being an industrious and productive city, our GVA per head is about 30,000, which puts us just above the England average, and our birth rate in terms of businesses, again, is above the England average. In terms of the census data, it shows that 43% of working people are in managerial or professional occupations, and that's slightly lower than the England average of 51% nationally. But conversely, we have a higher proportion of people in the process plant and machine operative sectors and roles. So we're still a city that makes things, and we're growing, and we're home to growing creative industries. We understood, didn't we, and I'll say a little bit more about the importance of our open and green spaces during the COVID pandemic, but we are very proud of our open and green spaces, and we have 74 green flag parks, the most in any other city outside of London. And as you know, London is 32 boroughs plus the city, so the most of any city in terms of green flag parks. And we've also given a significant commitment to carbon reduction and climate change progress. So some of you will be aware of the so-called Nottingham Declaration that dates back to 2003, where national government and local government came together and the eponymous name given to it was Nottingham because we've been a leader in terms of carbon reduction and fighting climate change for many years, and we have the ambitious target of being carbon neutral by 2028. Let me make that real for you. Since the 2005 baseline, carbon reductions across the whole city, not the council's operations, but the whole city in Nottingham have been reduced by 52%. 52% across the whole city since 2005. But we've got many challenges in the city. As I've already mentioned, we're the 11th most deprived district in the country. 30% of our super output areas are amongst the worst 10% for deprivation. Compared to other local authority areas, we're ranked near the bottom of the table for health deprivation, income, education, and skills. And nearly 8% of our population don't have English as a main language, and 1 in 3 children live in households where nobody works. 2 in 5 households have no access to a car, and much of this is driven by personal finances. And 1 in 3 adults are physically inactive, and life expectancy is 2 to 3 years less than the England average. So we've got some real issues to deal with. And it's not just the adults. Childhood obesity is a national concern, and the data shows that Nottingham's rates are increasing at a faster pace than the national average. So health across our entire population is important for us. So in that context, how did COVID-19 impact the city of Nottingham? There are many national trends which we saw which were exemplified. People moved around less. As lockdown restrictions came into place for the first time in March 2020, there was a dramatic fall in mobility. Also, how people moved around has changed. The use of both public and private transport fell sharply, and I'll talk a little bit later about how that's come back. There was a significant rise in working from home, but obviously this is a factor that's influenced by the decline in day-to-day travel and public transport usage. With less mobility, there was a knock-on effect in terms of the city centre, perhaps because office jobs commonly located in the city centre are those that can be done most readily from home. And another impact was the fall in spending on non-essential retail and hospitality. And again, let me make that real for you in terms of the breakdown in population. The majority of our taxi drivers are either black or Asian. With that fall off in hospitality activity, they were severely affected in terms of that. So it's important to recognise that COVID-19 had significantly different impacts on sections of society, depending on occupation, housing tenure, and status. While working from home was an option for some, not everybody had that choice. Not all jobs can be done from home. I provide visible leadership to 8,000 staff providing essential public services. Our bin lorries kept collecting waste. Our home care workers kept visiting people who needed adult social care in their homes. Many of our frontline roles continued as they did, alongside key workers in the NHS, the police, and the ambulance service. People in these important frontline roles had to keep commuting, and we saw that bus patronage for those people stayed most consistent on the bus routes where some of our most poorest people lived and in the neighbourhoods which they reside. And they did not have the choice to work from home. It's also important to note that staying at home was more of a struggle for some than others. Francis has referenced issues around social housing and some of the challenges there. Many of the homes in Nottingham are crowded and multi-generational in nature, making working from home or homeschooling more of a challenge. Also, not all homes had access to high-quality broadband or enough laptops to support home working and those choices. And many people in flats or apartments had little or no outdoor space, with a potential impact on mental health and well-being. So, what do some of those reflections mean for our view of the future of cities? We know our city, and we know the impacts brought by the pandemic. But what does that mean for what we need to do differently moving forwards? What practical steps should city leaders take to reshape our city centres and how people move about our cities? I'm particularly interested in the role of local authorities as stewards of place, the democratic local policymakers responsible for listening and responding to the needs of our populations. Cities are where most of us live, and our city centres are the beating heart of our communities. So should we be concerned? My belief is yes and no. City centres always have and always will evolve and develop. With skill and pragmatism, we can ensure that they adapt successfully in a post-pandemic context. Let us remain optimistic. Here's some reasons we are cheerful about the future of Nottingham and its city centre. And I'm going to introduce you to a video now, which is a development site the size of Wembley Stadium in the centre of Nottingham.
We're living in a time where our urban centres have fizzled out. The Broadmarsh was this big shopping mall structure, and it was about to be demolished. What if we could turn it into something that was actually soulful? What if we folded back the life that's been squeezed out of the heart of a city and really give spaces for us to see each other again? Can we make something that brings all aspects of society together and reinvigorates, putting green space at the centre stage in the heart of Broadmarsh, and to really have landscape areas for the people of Nottingham to enjoy, for them to walk in, hang around in, just to give the biodiversity that city centres typically never have. There's a truth to keeping history and building on it and not being scared of it. And if we eradicate, we also lose some of our humanity. Nottingham has the chance to reinvent in a way that hardly anyone else does. The idea is to retain as many elements of the history that's already there, so we can really amplify and ensure that the soul and character of Nottingham are as intact as ever. We've had the great privilege to be able to listen to the people of Nottingham and to collaborate with them and to bring what we believe is the most vibrant and community-spirited place together based on what we've learned from everybody, to rebuild a true social fabric in the city, to inspire a new generation to become the custodians of a more creative, sustainable, equitable city.
That was the world-famous urban designer Thomas Heatherwick setting the vision for a more creative, sustainable, equitable city. Nottingham's Broadmarsh is one of the most significant city centre development sites in the UK, and it's an opportunity for Nottingham to lead the way in reimagining the future of the city centre. So how did we get here? In April 2020, we were all deep in the first lockdown, and Into, shopping centre operator and developer, was leading the creation of a new Broadmarsh shopping centre, with a target to complete its development by summer 2021. By the summer, Into had gone into administration, and this meant the head lease, essentially the operation of the property and all the liabilities, once the company failed, came back to the council after it had been partially demolished. Essentially, we were handed back this half-demolished concrete structure right in the centre of our city centre, and it was potentially a blight on the whole of the city. And this was at the height of the pandemic, with patterns of retail, city centre usage and transport patronage all changing before our eyes. We knew we needed some fresh thinking. The scale and approach of our future plans needed to be bold and different. And therefore, we needed a different strategy. We needed to bring people back to the city centre, to create a place where people can meet, where people can feel welcomed and where they feel they can enjoy the city centre. And we also needed to create change that could drive economic activity and social value. And we wanted the citizens of Nottingham to be involved in shaping that vision. So we held something called a big conversation. This was the council's biggest engagement exercise in its history. We had over 3,000 full responses and over 12,000 individual comments in terms of what the citizens of Nottingham thought we should do. We received submissions from stakeholders such as the Wildlife Trust and many renowned architects in this country and abroad. And there were so many great ideas, it quickly became clear that there was a desire to reimagine and to do something differently. Central themes. We needed to deliver green space in the heart of the city centre. We needed to respect heritage, and we needed a mixture of land uses to enable different things at different times. Through talking, listening, engaging, and consulting, we now knew how the people of Nottingham wanted to see their city centre develop. And our role as stewards of place, as the democratically accountable body for the city, has been to listen and to respond and to move forward with this exciting vision. And perhaps one of the most important things for this space is to make it possible to live in the city centre alongside greenery so that people can be close to nature within it and throughout the urban environment. After the big conversation, we had a vast amount of ideas and comments. We now needed to get the right people and the right expertise and the right passion in terms of moving to the next stage. So, as a local authority, we let go of control. So instead of dictating what would happen, we set up an independent advisory group, and it was independent. The leader of the council asked a chap called Greg Nugent to chair and assemble the independent advisory group. Greg was formerly the Director of Brand and Marketing for the London 2012 Olympics, and he brought together a group of people with high energy and high skill to bring forward some ideas. And these included Sir Tim Smith from the Eden Project, as well as Nottingham's own Vicky McClure. And some of you will know Vicky McClure from the Line of Duty. So they drew on a wide range of ideas and expertise, commissioned Heather Wicks and took forward the ideas. So at the centre of this new vision is the frame. So the reinforced concrete frame from that 70s shopping centre, retaining that with its embedded carbon, but reimagined and repurposed. So this is about having the frame as a multi-use meeting space designed to enable a diverse range of uses to bring people together to do things differently. It's also about a construction approach which will probably create 2,000 jobs with a further 2,000 jobs permanently on site once the development is complete. And the space will also provide home to 1,000 households, as well as 400,000 square feet of high-end use, both in terms of business and office space in the city centre. And at its heart is the green space, breathing new life into the city centre. So we'll have over an acre of new green space right in the city centre. And Paul Wilkinson, the Chief Executive of Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust, has built the vision as a blueprint for sustainable city centres in a post-COVID world. And he said, his words, "By committing to protect the green heart and to threading wildlife habitat through the public spaces, business premises and homes, Nottingham City Council can lead the way, not just on carbon reduction, but on reconnecting people with nature." City centre renewal isn't just focused on the Broadmarsh area. We know that preserving our heritage is as equally as important. So, for example, I want to talk to you about the Bridlesmith Gate area in terms of what we're doing there. This is an area that used to command the highest rents in Nottingham, fairly close to Broadmarsh. The Paul Smith retail Emporium is located just adjacent to Bridlesmith Gate. It was the top-end shopping zone in Nottingham. The downside of that was that the high landlord return from the ground floor use of the retail space meant there was no need to make effective use of upper floors. And this created a kind of monoculture where effectively all the eggs were in one basket in terms of the ground floor retail space. However, with the change in shopping patterns, plus the impact of the pandemic, plus the previous failure of Broadmarsh, the reality is that Bridlesmith Gate began to have a high vacancy level and to become viewed as a failing street. But there's hope. A local entrepreneur identified the opportunity to assemble all the leases of Bridlesmith Gate, buy in properties and work with our planning department and a local architect. So we now have a whole street based approach to reimagine what it can be and to provide multiple reasons to visit, not just to shop. We're now encouraging uses for upper floors as well as on-street activity, street art and pavement cafes. Rigid planning policy designed to protect non-retail uses might have meant we limited ground floor activity in the past to A1 shops only. However, in response to listening to Nottingham people and working collaboratively with local entrepreneurs and architects, we've adapted our policies to enable a flexible approach to planning, urban space, and even heritage and street scenes. Bridlesmith Gate is now on its way to being turned around, vacancies are reduced, and local independent businesses are thriving alongside the remaining high street brands. Colleagues, this is exactly the kind of pragmatic opportunity local authorities up and down the country can seize to reshape our urban centres in a post-COVID context. But how do we get to this new reimagined city centre and how do we move around it? Well, perhaps the future Nottingham aspires to is only possible because of the decisions we have made in the past and how Nottingham has developed its transport alongside public realm is now key to the future of the city. Back in the 50s and 60s, there were plans for an inner city motorway slicing through Nottingham city centre. Thankfully, it was quickly recognised that urban road building such as this was not the right solution because it required major demolition, it was too expensive, and was incredibly environmentally damaging. In recent years, we've taken a more integrated approach. We've joined up planning and transport, We've retained our city bus company, our wholly owned subsidiary in public ownership, and we've also made significant investment in public transport. Through a PFI, we're a joint venture partner in our tram system. Buses, park and ride, and integrated ticketing are all part of that approach. We've also done a lot to manage traffic demand, including introducing parking policies, travel planning, and support and marketing and promotion to encourage travel behaviour change. We have the greatest proportion of public transport usage outside London of any city in this country. So it's worked. The tram alone serves 2 of the 3 biggest employers in Greater Nottingham, the University of Nottingham and the Queen's Medical Centre Hospital. 20 of the 30 largest employers in Greater Nottingham are within 800 metres of a tram stop. In total, the tram provides access to around 1,200 workplaces, to which around 55,000 employees commute, and nearly 30% of the Greater Nottingham population are within 800 metres of a tram stop. This slide shows a simplified map of our city centre. It shows the clear zone which paved the way for the tram and completely changed Nottingham city centre. The clear zone removed all unnecessary traffic from the core of the city centre. It created more space for pedestrians, including transformation of the old Market Square upon which the council house is located. And we recently found, with Nottingham Forest gaining promotion to the Premiership, the old Market Square can accommodate 40,000 fans in one go. It's a large open space. Another revolutionary change was to introduce the workplace parking levy in 2011. And as we gather in this room today, we still remain the only local authority in this country with a workplace parking levy in place. So, what is it? The workplace parking levy is a charge on employers who provide workplace parking. It was the first of its type in Europe. To date, it has brought the council £80 million in revenue, and we forecast that we'll earn £360 million over the next 30 years. It's also leveraged in another £650 million through match funding grants. So, 100% of employers are compliant with the scheme, and we achieve a collection rate of 99.9% of tax due. This means it generates funds to invest in our public transport network. It's contributed to the council's contribution to extending the tram, improvements to the railway station, and a new fleet of environmentally friendly buses. These were very bold decisions that were taken 10, 15 years ago, and we need to continue to be bold moving forwards. The question we've got to ask is, has COVID threatened the success of our transport system in Nottingham? And what this slide does, it compares patronage trends through the pre-COVID period with that experienced during COVID. So we can see that car usage is back to about 90% of pre-COVID level. Bus patronage is back to about 80%, but that's not evenly spread. If we consider bus routes into our more deprived areas of Nottingham, patronage is about 95% of pre-COVID levels, because some of those folk are doing roles where they haven't got the option to work from home, so they are using the bus in exactly the way they were doing before. When we break it down and we look at the patronage rates into our more middle class areas, bus patronage rates are about 60-65%. So just to kind of understand that ongoing impact of the choices that some people have. Also, the large part of our response to the changes in public transport patronage has been to get active, getting people out and about. We're investing in permanent active travel measures through the Transforming Cities programme that we work with government on and the Levelling Up Transport Fund. We're developing a comprehensive, high-quality, segregated cycle network, which includes new pedestrian and cycle bridge over the River Trent. We've invested significantly in terms of smart ticketing and interoperability, and we've been trialling shared e-scooters, wireless taxi e-charging, and 50% of our fleet of 500 vehicles are electric. And indeed, I should have had a picture of our 2 refuse vehicles, which were the 2 first purpose-built refuse vehicles off the production line, where we had a naming competition with local schools, and the names were Binderella and Trash Gordon. Absolutely great to get the involvement of local children. So, as I sort of come towards the end of my presentation to you, I suppose it's just to reflect on the fact that, given what I was saying earlier about some of the health inequalities and challenges that we've got, that active travel piece is not just about transport and transportation, it's also about attacking health inequalities. It's also about what we can do to contribute to reducing our carbon emissions still further, something we're really ambitious about. So this slide shows the source of carbon emissions from the transport sector and how we want to see them decline over years. And given the large proportion of vehicles on our roads are cars, it makes sense that we take further steps to encourage behaviour change. We've made it safer, easier and more pleasant for people to walk and cycle, and where possible to leave their cars at home. When it's necessary to use a car, we're encouraging it to be as clean as possible, but not everybody can afford an electric car. So instead, we're introducing some practical steps to make vehicles as clean as possible. Nottingham City Transport now has the largest fleet of biogas double-decker buses in the world. We've incentivised the take-up of electric vehicles, including new taxis which can charge wirelessly whilst waiting at taxi ranks. And we've also expanded our car club scheme as well as investing in our own fleet. And so what's good for reducing carbon emissions is generally good for improving air quality as well. And all of these measures have helped Nottingham to avoid the need to introduce a clean air zone, as we are already achieving the necessary reductions in air pollution and achieving air quality standards. And in addition to all of that, we're also retrofitting all of our remaining diesel buses with exhaust technology which reduces their emissions by 90%. We're introducing minimum age requirements in terms of the taxi fleet, and we're developing vehicle emission standards for all vehicles entering the city centre. So it's certainly the case that we're doing a lot in terms of integrated transport and the carbon reduction agenda. And we need to do all of this and more if we're to hit our carbon neutral target of 2028. So watch this space. We're determined and up for the challenge. So colleagues, I just want to close with a few words. What is the future of the city centre after the COVID-19 pandemic? Let us remain optimistic. Cities are where most of us live and are our beating heart. City centres always have and will continue to evolve and develop. With skill and pragmatism, we can ensure that they adapt successfully in a post-pandemic context. I think that the Nottingham story outlines many practical steps that city leaders may want to consider when shaping their urban areas. Our role as a local authority, as a steward of place, and a democratically elected policymaker and convener, means that we have a great privilege of listening to and responding to the needs and views of our people. I think that the conversation serves us well, and gives me optimism that the future of our city centre will be a bright one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mel, and I'd like to thank Francis again. I mean, I think the two themes are picked up very well. You were talking about starting at the micro sort of building level as a framework. I think you've illustrated very well the potential of that. And Mel, I like your phrase about local authorities being stewards of public realm or public space, and I think you've illustrated that very well indeed as well. So I'd like to thank you both very much indeed. We started a bit late. We've had two very full presentations, and one of the important things about this is an opportunity to network and discuss. So I think probably what we'll do is we'll cut the Q&A from the stage, but give you an opportunity to talk to the speakers over a drink in a more relaxed format. I just invite Terry to say a few words. Matthew said a few words, so I'll leave it to you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Is that all right? Look, this wouldn't be possible without Matthew's work, and also with Alina and Lee, so I want to thank them for all the help in putting this on for us this evening. As I said before, the first time that we've all come together like this. Also, this wouldn't be possible without our corporate sponsors, who are many of whom are here this evening. People like, well, actually from Arab and Alstom and Stagecoach, Heathrow, Bolt, National Highways, and Tata Consulting Group. But there's more than that, but those are the people who are coming along this evening. So thank you. If any of you are envious of that corporate sponsorship, then please come to Matthew or myself or any of the other commissioners here, because actually just being here gets you so many points, and what do points mean? Anyway, so thank you very much for coming along. But actually, can I also thank yourself? All three. Actually, Sarah's just had to go. But Mel and Francis, can I thank you for that? Lots of stimulating thought. I had loads of questions, but Matthew said we've run out of time. We're going to have them, more of them later on over a drink. So thank you very much.